Rodriguez, and I am from FIU's Cohort 18. Today I'm going to be demonstrating the proper way to install a CPU along with the heatsink and a fan. I'm going to break down this video into 3 to 5 elements. First one being is what's called the brand selection, so that you can understand the type of CPU that's going to fit your business needs or your personal needs or what have you. The second is your price range. Determine how much you want to spend to upgrade or install a CPU from scratch altogether. The third part is safety. It's very important that while you're working on your machine that you strap yourself down securely so that you don't short out the motherboard. And the fourth element is going to be obviously installing it and testing it to make sure that the CPU is working adequately. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and start. As you can see here, I've laid out my PC. It's open. I've got a toolkit. I've got my CPU right over here, my heatsink and fan. It's very important that when you're handling the chip itself that you're going to be installing, that you grab it this way, from with your thumb and your index finger. Do not touch the pins on top, because if you do touch the pins and you bend them, when you install the CPU, you're obviously going to have problems and it's not going to function correctly. So be very careful when handling this. Okay, here is a standard PC kit that you can get. Toolkit. It's not very expensive. They range anywhere from $10 to $15, and with it you'll find all types of screws. You'll find some additional tools, but more importantly, what you're going to need for this particular project is your safety strap. Okay, the safety strap, as I said in the beginning, will prevent you from shortening out your motherboard. So what I'm going to do at this point is show you how to properly install it on yourself. Okay, what you're going to do is you're going to fix it like this, strap it in, make sure it's nice and tight, and that this is always connected, the strap itself. Okay, so you can see it's properly installed now, and this will allow me to maneuver inside the CPU. Okay. The other thing that I want to do is ground myself, and you can ground yourself right to the PC itself. Okay. Make sure that you leave yourself enough room so that you can work. Now, what I'm going to show you here is the inner workings of the PC. Okay. So my lovely assistant is going to get up and help me here, and she's going to actually look inside the bones of the PC. As you can see here, this is the motherboard itself. This is where you would install the actual chip. This is an additional fan. As an extra precaution, nowadays PCs run very hot, so a secondary fan does not hurt it, on top of using a fan, as you will see in this case, that I'm going to put on the CPU itself. Okay, so once I've established that I've got a nice working area here, that it's free and clear of all wires, I'm going to go ahead and proceed and install my actual chip. Okay. In this case, I'm going to use an AMD chip. It's a dual processor. It's a 3800. This PC in particular, I enjoy a lot of gaming, so I've selected kind of a faster AMD chip to help me with that. As today's games use a lot of rendering and what have you. Obviously, you need a good video card, which I happen to have as well, but you know, that's another video. Anyway, to properly install the chip itself, you want to look at the schematics of the motherboard. As you can see here, inside the motherboard, you have a pointer. That pointer indicates in what direction the CPU should go. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and place my CPU in there. As you can see, the arrow matches the arrow on the motherboard. Okay. The next thing you want to do is secure the CPU down. It's very simple. You press down on that lever, you make sure it's nice and secure. Once you've done that, there really is no need for you to continue to touch the CPU, because obviously this could damage it further. So just leave it as is. Then you're going to take the heatsink itself. Okay, so you can see this heatsink comes affixed with an additional fan, and this helps actually cool down the CPU in conjunction with the heatsink. So I'm going to go ahead and place my heatsink down. Make sure it's nice and secured. Okay. And I've got it down. Now I'm going to lock down my lever. Make sure it's nice and tidy in there. And there it is. I've fastened it and it's nice and secured. Okay? The other thing that I'm going to do is take the power and affix it to the motherboard. As you can see here, and install it right over here, making sure not to bend the pins and that it's nice and secure. Okay? This is another fan here, and I've put this fan as a secondary precaution to make sure that in no way heat generates and causes any damage to any of the circuitry. So I'm going to plug this in as well, and there we go. Okay, just making sure everything is nice and secure now. Make sure that there's no loose wires. The last thing I've done here is the power to the actual motherboard. I need to install this to make sure that I'm getting enough power to the actual motherboard. So I'm going to plug this in as well. And I have literally installed my CPU. I'm going to check one last time, make sure everything is secured, make sure that there's no wires that are actually in the fan that can prevent it from burning out. And at this point I'm going to go ahead and start installing all the components back. My monitor, my printer, my speakers, and what have you, and all of this should come together and we should have a nice fast CPU. Okay, so the next step you will see is the actual CPU in effect. Okay class, now I'm going to go ahead and I've got my CPU set up, I've installed it, I've got my heatsink and my fan. Now what I'm going to do is actually set it up so that I can start working on the machine. Okay, so you take your CPU, the actual base unit. I like to leave things off the ground. It prevents anything if you have any type of water damage or what have you. The machine is not directly on the floor, and that can help. Okay, so all I'm going to do here is go ahead and set up all of my devices. Okay, I've got my actual mouse. Okay, my monitor. Okay, make sure I secure that in there real nice and firm. Okay, my keyboard. Speakers for those of you that enjoy music. My NIC card. Make sure that I actually have the ability to surf the internet, which is very important. And last but not least, your power. This is obviously your most important. Okay, so I've done that, but I've actually turned on my monitor. As you can see, it's going through the boot process, which is a good indication that our CPU installation went successfully. And that is a site for solar. And there it is. We have our actually got our CPU installed successfully. Okay. Now, as you can see, everything went according to plan. We have our CPUs working as it should. So at this point, you can now enjoy your PC. Should you have any technical difficulties, please remember to always refer back to the owner's manual or the manufacturer's manual in this case, so that if there's anything you may have missed along the way, you can go ahead and troubleshoot it from that standpoint. I hope you find this video educational and instructional at the same time, and go Yellow Team.